The Philippines became a colony of the United States following the Spanish-American War and the subsequent Philippine-American War. In 1935, under the terms of the Tidings-McDuffie Act, the Philippines became a self-governing commonwealth. The Philippine Commonwealth with full independence planned for 10 years later. In 1898, America's manifest destiny and the Filipinos' aspirations for freedom we had by then proclaimed our independence from Spain clashed in a bloody guerrilla war, ending with the capture of our President Aguinaldo and the demise of Asia's First Republic. Following independence, there remained in the Philippines a strong American military presence, including a number of United States military bases in the Philippines, all allowed by treaties between the newly independent Philippines and the United States. Filipinos won America's admiration for their patriotism, love of country, and their steadfast and unwarming resolve to be free. Over time, the bitterness of defeat and the triumphalism of empire give way to grudging collaboration, then evolving into mutual trust and respect.
The Philippines has been a long-standing ally of the United States since it gained independence on July 4, 1946. The Philippines is a former U.S. colony. The military bases agreement between the two countries was signed in 1947 and terminated in 1991. This was followed by the Mutual Defense Treaty in 1951, Visiting Forces Agreement, and Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. This allowed U.S. military troops to conduct exercises in the Philippines. And the U.S. was also the third top foreign investors in the country in 2016, pledging $32.4 billion or 14.7%.
The United States established diplomatic relations with the Philippines in 1946. U.S.-Philippine relations are based on strong historical and cultural linkage and shared commitment to democracy and human rights. The United States and the Philippines have strong trade and investment relationship with over 27 billion in goods and services traded. The United States is one of the largest foreign investors in the Philippines and is the Philippines' third largest trading partner.
Economic affairs, bilateral trade and investment. Both countries meet regularly under the auspices of the Trade and Investment Framework Agreement (TIFA). Under this, a Memorandum of Understanding (MO) aimed to cooperate on stopping illegal transshipments of textiles apparel. Currently, the U.S. is the Philippines' #1 source of foreign direct investments. Philippine exports to the U.S. mainly comprises of semiconductor devices, garments, coconut oil, other manufactures, sugar, processed food and beverages, machinery, and more. In terms of imports, the Philippines sources from the U.S. materials and accessories for the manufacture of electronic equipment, telecommunication equipment, power generating and specialized machines, feedstuff for animals, and other food and live animals. Partnership for Growth. It focuses in improving regulatory quality, strengthening the rule of law and anti-corruption measures, and improving fiscal performance. The USAID-GPH bilateral agreement amendment made available $29 million to start the PFGE program. The USAID planned a funding for the duration with the agreement in the amount of $140 million. Socio-cultural affairs education. Cooperation in education is also a cornerstone of Philippine-U.S. relations. This comprises of the public education system, professional and student exchanges, and the Fulbright program in the Philippines.
Do you know that Filipino can also be elected in US Congress? Yes, because due to the scattering living patterns, it is nearly possible for the Filipino American candidates to win the elections. It is based on the Filipino and American votes.
Okay, so the first Filipino that was being elected in the U.S. Congress is Austria Steve. So Austria Steve was elected to Ohio State Senate in 2001, representing the 10th district. He also served 2 terms as the Senate House Majority Whip, which was in 1998. He sponsored the Internet Child Protection Act, which was later enacted into law, so that he served as chairman of the Senate Highways and Transportation and Senate Judiciary Committees. So the second Filipino that was being elected in the U.S. Congress was also Ron A. Villanueva. He is the first Filipino that was being elected in Virginia state government. So he is a former member of Virginia's government, and he represents the 21 districts in Virginia. So October was established as Filipino American History Month. It is because to acknowledge the first landing of Filipino in October 18, 1587 in Morro Bay in California. So it was celebrated by the Filipino Americans. So actually, there are so many holidays that was celebrated by Filipino Americans in the regional in USA. But ito lang yung babagkitin ko kasi ito yung kadalasang always nila na sineselebrate. So, we have here the Winter Sinulog. So, it was celebrated every month of January in Philadelphia. And the PhilFest it was celebrated every month of May in nationwide, but also in USA. And this Asian Heritage Festival, they celebrated this in the month of May in New Orleans, and the Philippines Independence Day parade every month of June in New York City, and also they celebrated Festa Filipina in San Francisco every June 12, and also they celebrated this Jose Rizal Day every month of December 30 nationwide in USA. Filipino American have cuisines. It has been present in America ever since Filipino moved there. So, but only recently have they come down from underneath and people started enjoying the meat-based flavor and fried food that is known as Filipino food. Filipino food has gone through its evolution of adapting other culture food practices into their own or borrowing the food concept into their own. Filipinos took their food and debuted it as they came to the America by presenting it, catering, and opening up the Philippines' most popular food chain is the Jollibee. There is also a long list of different Filipino types of dishes that represent Filipino Americans. So catering has always been a big thing for Filipino restaurants to have, and they are continuing to continue this trend in many restaurants such as Sunda in Chicago and Purple Yam in Brooklyn. This has been such a big idea for Filipino restaurants because this could be the debut of the restaurants in trying to start up, or it could be just be another way of spreading and finding new customers. They have also continued to sell typical Filipino dishes and the Jollibee. A Jollibee is a restaurant at the Ala Moana Center in Honolulu. It is a fast food restaurant that shows to be in 8 countries with 2,316 stores. So this still growing restaurant was started from an ice cream store and grew up into nationwide restaurant it is today. And it has a big diverse company called Jollibee Food Corporation.